Robert's fist connected with the hospital wall before he could stop himself. "You want me to what?" he roared at the woman in the bed, the same woman he'd just risked his life to save, the same woman who'd signed the papers that killed his wife. Catherine Wells didn't flinch. "I want you to run my company's engineering division," she said calmly. "And before you refuse, you should know I'm dying. 6 months, maybe less. And I need someone who hates me enough to tell me the truth. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story reaches." The wrench slipped. Robert Chen's knuckles slammed into the machine housing skin, splitting instantly. Blood dripped onto the factory floor. Just another Tuesday at Morrison Manufacturing, where the equipment was older than most of the workers and twice as mean. "Chen, you bleeding again." Marcus, his line supervisor, didn't even look up from his clipboard, just pointed toward the first aid station with his pen. "Third time this month. They'd probably dock his pay for wasting bandages." Robert wrapped his hand in shop rags and kept working. 15 minutes until shift change. 15 minutes until he could pick up Grace from volleyball practice and Maya from after-school care. 15 minutes until the emergency alarm shrieked. Not the regular end-of-shift buzzer. The other one. The one that meant someone had screwed up badly enough that the whole line had to stop. "Chen." Marcus was running toward him now, face pale. "Your truck, someone just radioed in. There's been an accident on Pleasant Valley Bridge." Robert's blood turned to ice. He'd left his truck in the parking lot. The girls were at school. They couldn't be. "Not your truck, man. But there's a car in the river right where you drive home every night. Went through the guardrail 10 minutes ago." Robert was already moving. He didn't clock out, didn't grab his coat, just ran through the factory floor, past the confused faces of coworkers, through the parking lot, where his beat-up Ford sat exactly where he'd left it. He gunned the engine tires, screaming as he peeled onto the main road. Pleasant Valley Bridge was only 2 miles away. It took him 90 seconds. The scene was chaos. 2 cars had pulled over, hazard lights flashing uselessly in the rain. A woman was screaming into her phone. A man stood at the broken guardrail, just staring down at the water. No emergency vehicles yet, just civilians frozen doing nothing. Robert slammed on his brakes and jumped out. "Did anyone go in?" he shouted. The man at the guardrail turned face white. "It's 30 feet down, man. The current." Robert didn't hear the rest. He was already running. His boots hit the bridge railing. For one crystallized second, he could see everything. The churning black water below, the faint glow of headlights, already fading beneath the surface, the rain slashing sideways in sheets. His brain supplied the statistics automatically. Water temperature maybe 40 degrees. Hypothermia sets in within minutes. Car sinking fast. Windows probably won't break from inside. Driver has less than 60 seconds before Robert jumped. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. Cold didn't even begin to describe it. The river was liquid knives slicing through his clothes, his skin straight into his bones. The current grabbed him immediately, trying to drag him downstream. Robert kicked hard, fighting toward where he'd seen the headlights. The water was murky, zero visibility. His hands swept through emptiness, searching. His fingers hit metal. The car was nose down, already 20 feet under and sinking. Robert grabbed the door handle and pulled. Locked. Of course it was locked. Through the window, he could just make out a shape, someone in the driver's seat, movements. Sluggish, panicked. Robert slammed his fist against the glass. Nothing. Again. Nothing. His lungs were screaming now, vision starting to narrow at the edges. How long had he been down? 30 seconds. 40. The person inside wasn't moving anymore. No, Robert thought. No. He looked down. The riverbed was rocky here, he knew, because he'd fished this spot with Sarah before Maya was born, back when life was simple and full of promise. His hand closed around a stone the size of a softball. Robert smashed it against the window. The glass held. Again. A crack appeared. Again. The window exploded, inward shards spinning through the water like slow-motion stars. Robert reached through, cutting his arm on the remaining glass, not caring. His hand found fabric, a jacket expensive by the feel of it. He grabbed and pulled. The person didn't move. The seatbelt. Robert's vision was going black now. His body was screaming for air. Every instinct demanding he surface breathe, save himself. His fingers found the seatbelt release. Click. The body came free, suddenly weightless in the water. Robert got an arm around the chest and kicked. 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 The surface was miles away. His muscles were lead. His lungs were fire. The darkness at the edges of his vision was spreading, creeping inward, promising peace, rest, an end to the cold. Robert's head broke the surface. He gasped, choked, gasped again. The rain was gentle compared to the river's violence. The current still pulled at him, trying to reclaim them both. Robert got the body. The person had to think of them as a person onto their back arm across their chest in a lifeguard carry he'd learned 20 years ago and never thought he'd use. The shore was 30 yards away. Might as well have been 30 miles. Robert swam. Each stroke was agony. His legs barely responded. The cold had sunk so deep it felt like his bones were made of ice. But he'd promised Sarah in those last terrible days that he'd take care of their girls, that he'd be there for them, that he wouldn't give up. If he drowned in this river, he'd break that promise. So Robert didn't drown. His feet touched mud. He stood barely and dragged the person up the embankment through the reeds onto the grass. Voices were shouting. Sirens in the distance finally. Someone threw a blanket over his shoulders. Robert rolled the person onto their side. Water poured from their mouth. He pressed on their back, forcing out more. Come on! Come on! The person coughed. Once. Twice. Then their eyes opened, and Robert's world tilted sideways. He knew that face. Older now. Harder. Soaking wet and gasping for air. But unmistakable. Catherine Wells. The woman who'd destroyed his life 12 years ago was staring up at him, recognition flooding her eyes at the same moment. You... she gasped. Robert stood up so fast he nearly fell over. No, he said. No, no, no. Sir, you need to sit down. An EMT grabbed his arm. You're hypothermic, you're bleeding. I'm fine. Robert jerked away, staring at the woman on the ground. His hands were shaking from cold or rage he couldn't tell. I wouldn't have. If he'd known who was in that car, would he still have jumped? The question burned worse than the cold. Catherine was still staring at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then the EMTs swarmed her, and Robert stumbled backward, letting the chaos swallow him. They tried to make him go to the hospital. Robert refused. Signed their forms with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, accepted their warnings about hypothermia and shock, and got in his truck. He needed to pick up Grace. He was already 40 minutes late. She'd be worried. His phone had 11 missed calls. He called her back. Dad, where are you? Practice ended forever ago, and you're never late, and I tried calling, and... I'm sorry, sweetheart. There was an accident. I'm okay. I'm on my way right now. What kind of accident? Nothing. Don't worry about it. Is Maya with you? Coach Reynolds picked her up from aftercare when you didn't show. Dad, what happened? I'll explain when I get there. 5 minutes. He hung up before she could ask more questions. The high school parking lot was nearly empty. Grace stood under the awning with Coach Reynolds, both of them turning as his truck pulled up. Grace's eyes went wide. Dad, you're soaking wet. And is that blood? I'm fine. You're not fine. Coach, look at him. Coach Reynolds, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been giving Grace rides when Robert's shifts ran long, stepped closer, her expression shifting from concern to alarm. Mr. Chen, you need medical attention. I've been cleared by EMTs. Just need to get the girls home. You look like you fell in a river. The words hung in the air. Grace's eyes got even wider. Dad, the accident on Pleasant Valley Bridge. That was you. Grace? It's all over the news. Someone drove into the river and... She stopped. You went in after them, didn't you? It wasn't a question. Robert didn't answer. Coach Reynolds pulled out her phone, typed something, and turned the screen to face him. Local news website already running the story, Hero saves driver in bridge crash. Grainy footage from someone's phone showing a figure diving off the bridge. That's you, Grace said flatly. I need to get Maya. Mr. Chen. Coach Reynolds' voice was gentle. Grace is right. I need to get my daughter and go home. Thank you for watching, Grace. We'll be fine. He was already getting back in the truck. Grace climbed in beside him, silent. They drove to the elementary school in heavy quiet. Maya bounded out when she saw the truck, chattering about her day until she got close enough to see Robert's condition. Daddy, why are you all wet? Fell in a puddle at work, baby. That's not a puddle. That's like a lake amount of wet. Big puddle. Grace snorted from the passenger seat. They drove home. Robert made dinner on autopilot, mac and cheese from a box, sliced apples, the carrot sticks neither girl would eat, but he included anyway because Sarah would have wanted him to. His hands had finally stopped shaking. The knock came at 7 p.m. Grace opened the door before Robert could stop her. A man in an expensive suit stood on their porch. Good evening. I'm looking for Robert Chen. Who's asking? My name is James Whitmore. I'm Ms. Catherine Wells's attorney. She'd like to speak with Mr. Chen about this afternoon's incident. Tell her no. Robert called from the kitchen. Grace glanced back at him, surprised, then turned to the lawyer. He says no. I'm authorized to compensate Mr. Chen for his heroism. I don't want her money. And Ms. Wells would like to thank him in person. She's at Mercy General Room 412 if he changes his mind. The lawyer handed Grace a card and left. Grace closed the door and brought the card to Robert. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, the kind of card that cost more than his phone bill. Dad, Grace said carefully. Who is Catherine Wells? No one. The news says she's the CEO of Aurora Technologies. I know who she is. Then why? Grace. Robert's voice came out sharper than intended. Drop it, please. His daughter studied him with those two knowing eyes. 13 years old, and already reading him like a book. Does this have something to do with Westlake? She asked quietly. Robert's hands stilled on the dishwasher he was loading. You talk in your sleep sometimes, Grace continued. About Mom, about the layoffs, about someone named Wells who... Stop. Dad, I said stop. Grace flinched. Robert closed his eyes, hating himself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to... It's okay. But her voice was small now, hurt. I'll go do homework. She disappeared upstairs. Maya looked up from her coloring book at the kitchen table. Is Grace mad? No, baby, just a long day. You should apologize better. When I make Grace mad, I have to apologize and give her my fruit snacks. Despite everything, Robert smiled. That's good advice. He went upstairs 20 minutes later with a plate of cookies homemade last weekend, frozen in portions, because that's how they made it work. Grace's door was cracked. He knocked anyway. Can I come in? It's your house. Robert sat on the edge of her bed. Grace was lying on her stomach, physics homework spread around her, but he could tell she wasn't actually working, just staring at the same problem. Catherine Wells ran the company that laid me off, Robert said quietly. Before you were born. When Mom was sick. The layoffs meant we lost our insurance. It meant... His throat closed. It meant we couldn't afford some of her treatments. Grace rolled over, face-stricken. Dad? I saved her life today. The woman who... He stopped. Started again. I pulled her out of that river, and I hate that I did. But you did it anyway. I didn't know it was her until after. Would you have done it if you'd known? The question Robert had been asking himself for hours. I don't know, he admitted. And that scares me. Grace sat up and hugged him fierce and sudden. You jumped anyway. That's what matters. You saved someone, even someone who hurt us. That's Dad, that's who you are. Robert held his daughter and tried to believe her. The hospital called at 9 p.m. Mr. Chen, this is Dr. Patricia Morrison from Mercy General. I'm calling on behalf of Catherine Wells. I already told her lawyer. She's dying. Robert stopped breathing. I'm sorry to be blunt. Dr. Morrison continued, but Ms. Wells insisted I tell you directly. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed 6 months ago. She has perhaps 3 to 4 months left. She wants to speak with you. Not to apologize, she said you'd hang up if I said that, but to make you an offer. What kind of offer? That's between you and her, but Mr. Chen, whatever history you have, she doesn't have time to waste. None of us do really, but she especially doesn't. The line went dead. Robert stood in his kitchen phone still pressed to his ear, mind reeling. Dying. Catherine Wells was dying. The woman he'd spent 12 years hating, whose name he'd cursed in the dark on the worst nights after Sarah's funeral, who represented everything wrong with corporate America. In his mind, she was dying. And she wanted to talk to him. Robert looked at the business card still sitting on the counter, picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. Grace appeared in the doorway dressed for bed. You're going to see her, aren't you? I don't know. You should. Why? His daughter shrugged. Because you'll hate yourself if you don't. You'll wonder what she wanted to say. It'll eat at you. I know you, Dad. You need answers. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just didn't notice because I was shorter before. Robert laughed despite himself. Go to bed, smartass. Only if you promise to think about it. I promise. Grace kissed his cheek and headed upstairs. Robert stood alone in the kitchen for another 30 minutes, just turning the business card over and over in his hands. Then he grabbed his keys. Mercy General was quiet at 10 p.m. The night nurse at the desk looked up as Robert approached, still wearing his damp clothes from the river, probably looking like hell. Room 412, he said. She checked her computer. Ms. Wells left instructions. You can go up. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt eternal. Room 412 was at the end of the corridor. Private room. Through the small window in the door, Robert could see Catherine sitting up in bed, laptop open, working despite the IV in her arm and the monitors beeping beside her. He knocked. Come in. Robert opened the door. Catherine looked up, and something flickered across her face. Relief, surprise. She closed the laptop. Mr. Chen, I wasn't sure you'd come. Neither was I. Robert stayed near the door, not sitting. Your doctor said you wanted to make me an offer. Straight to business. I appreciate that. Catherine gestured to the chair beside her bed. Please, sit. This conversation will take a while. I'd rather stand. Then stand. But hear me out before you leave. Robert crossed his arms. Waited. Catherine took a breath. What happened at Westlake was inexcusable. Not the sale itself. I was young and stupid and listened to advisors who cared more about profit than people. But what happened after? The layoffs, the benefit cuts, the way they gutted the company. I should have done due diligence. I should have protected the workers in the sale terms. I didn't. That's on me. Is this the apology you said you wouldn't give? This is context. The apology comes later if you want it. Right now I'm explaining why I started Aurora Technologies. Why I've spent 12 years building something different. Something that can't be bought out or destroyed by short-term thinking. Good for you. That doesn't fix what you did. No, it doesn't. But it might give meaning to what I'm about to ask. Catherine met his eyes. I want you to run my engineering division. Full director position. Name your salary. Full benefits, stock options, college funds for your daughters. Robert laughed bitter and sharp. You think you can buy me? I think I can give you what you're actually worth. What Westlake should have given you. What Morrison Manufacturing certainly isn't giving you. She pulled out a tablet, brought up what looked like personnel files. Robert Chen, mechanical engineering degree from State. Top 15% of your class. 5 years at Westlake on track for senior engineer when the sale happened. 12 years at Morrison doing work any high school grad could do because you needed stable income for your family. How do you? I researched you. After the bridge, I wanted to know who jumped in to save me. Catherine's voice softened. I wanted to know who Sarah Chen was too. Your wife. Cancer treatment at Mercy General. 3 years of battle. I pulled the records legally through proper channels. I saw what it cost. What you sacrificed. What you lost. Robert's hands were shaking again. Stop. The layoffs happened 8 months before her diagnosis. If you'd still had your Westlake insurance. Stop. Catherine went quiet. Robert's vision was blurring. You don't get to talk about her. You don't get to... His voice broke. She died because we couldn't afford the trial treatments, the experimental options. We had to choose between rent and chemotherapy, between Maya's food and Sarah's medicine. Do you understand what that does to a person? To watch someone you love die by degrees because you can't afford to save them. No, Catherine said softly. I don't. My father died instantly. Heart attack at his desk. I never had to make those choices. But Robert... She waited until he looked at her. I'm making them now. Every day. I have maybe 4 months. 3 if the cancer's aggressive. And I'm choosing how to spend that time. I'm choosing what to do with my company, my money, my legacy. What does that have to do with me? Everything. Catherine leaned forward, intensity burning in her eyes, despite her obvious exhaustion. Aurora is developing a portable dialysis system. Revolutionary filtration technology. Could save millions of lives in developing countries where traditional dialysis is too expensive or infrastructure doesn't support it. We're 6 months from field trials, maybe 9 from FDA approval. Congratulations. The lead engineer quit last week. Personal reasons. The backup team is brilliant, but they're not ready. They don't have the practical experience, the real-world problem-solving skills. They need someone who can translate theoretical designs into equipment that works in villages without reliable power, in clinics, without trained technicians, in conditions that would make most engineers quit. Understanding dawned slowly. You want me, Robert said. I need you. There's a difference. Catherine's hand went to a pendant at her throat, silver, unusual design. She twisted it absently. When I was in that car when the water was rising, I thought about all the things I'd never finish, all the people I'd let down. The dialysis project especially. Because it's not about money or legacy or any of that bullshit. It's about my father. Your father. He built the first version of the filtration system, years ago before he died. He never got to see it work, never got to make it affordable enough to matter. Her voice cracked. I've spent 12 years trying to finish what he started, and I'm running out of time. Robert stood very still, processing. So yes, Catherine continued, I'm offering you money, a lot of it. But I'm also offering you a chance to save lives. Real, specific lives. People who are dying right now because they can't access dialysis. Because the technology is too expensive, too complicated, too Western-centric to work in their reality. Why should I believe you? Because you jumped into a river. You didn't check to see who was drowning first. You didn't calculate the risks or weigh the benefits. You just acted. That's who you are. Catherine pulled up images on her tablet. Prototypes, schematics, field photos from clinics in Kenya, India, Guatemala. This is who I am. Not the person who made mistakes at Westlake. Not the CEO playing corporate games. This. The work. The mission. Robert looked at the images. The technology was elegant, simple, in a way that spoke to genuine innovation. The kind of design that made his engineer's brain light up with possibilities. How long do I have to decide? He asked. End of the week. After that, I'll have to move forward with the backup team. They'll get there eventually, but it'll take longer, and I might not— She stopped. I might not see it finished. Robert turned toward the door. Robert? Catherine's voice stopped him. I am sorry. For Westlake. For Sarah. For every choice I made that hurt your family. I can't undo it, but I can try to make the time I have left count for something. Let me do that. Let me try. Robert left without answering. He drove home in a daze, climbed into bed without changing clothes, stared at the ceiling until dawn. Grace found him at the kitchen table at 6 a.m., still in yesterday's clothes coffee, untouched in front of him. You went, she said. Yeah. And she offered me a job, running her engineering division, working on medical technology that could save millions of lives. That's amazing, Dad. She's dying. Cancer. Has maybe 4 months. Grace sat down across from him. Do you believe her about the job? I don't know what to believe anymore. Then figure it out. Grace's voice was firm. Because I'm not watching you waste another 12 years on that factory floor wondering what if. Mom wouldn't want that. I don't want that. Grace. She's dying. Dad, Catherine Wells, and she's trying to do something good with the time she has left. Something that includes you. Maybe that doesn't fix the past, but maybe— His daughter reached across the table, squeezed his hand. Maybe it gives you both a future, however long that is. Robert looked at his daughter, 13 years old, too young to be this wise, too young to be giving him advice about life and death and forgiveness. But she was right, and he knew it. So, Robert called Catherine at 8 a.m. I'll take the tour, he said when she answered. Of Aurora, the facilities, the dialysis project, everything. But I'm not promising anything. When can you come? Today. I'll call in sick at Morrison. Bring your daughters. What? Bring Grace and Maya. Let them see what you'd be working on. Let them help you decide. This affects their future too. Robert thought about that. Okay, we'll be there at 10. He hung up. Grace was already packing a bag. How did you know I'd say yes? Robert asked. His daughter grinned. Because I'm your daughter. I know you. Maya appeared dressed and ready. Are we going on an adventure? Something like that, baby. Is the rich lady going to be there? Yeah, she is. Good. Maya grabbed her backpack. I have questions about her inventions. Robert looked at his daughters, so ready, so brave, so certain this was the right choice, and felt something in his chest unlock. Maybe Grace was right. Maybe this was a chance at a future. Maybe, just maybe, the woman he'd saved from drowning could save him right back. They got in the truck and drove toward Aurora Technologies, toward possibility, toward a future Robert had stopped believing in 12 years ago. And for the first time since Sarah died, he let himself hope. Aurora Technologies looked nothing like Morrison Manufacturing. Robert pulled into the visitor lot and just sat there for a moment, engine idling, staring at the glass building that seemed to grow out of the landscaping like something from a future he'd stopped believing in. Maya pressed her face against the window. Dad, it's like a spaceship. It's just a building, baby. A spaceship building. Grace was quiet in the passenger seat, but Robert caught her looking at him instead of the campus, reading him, worrying. We can leave, she said. If this is too much. I'm fine. You're gripping the steering wheel like you're trying to strangle it. Robert forced his hands to relax. Let's just see what she wants to show us. They walked through automatic doors into a lobby that probably cost more than Robert's house. Everything was clean lines and natural light, with this massive installation hanging from the ceiling. Some kind of flowing sculpture made of metal and glass that caught the sun and threw rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Maya gasped. It's beautiful. The receptionist smiled. That's flow. Ms. Wells commissioned it from a Kenyan artist. It's meant to represent water purification systems. Ms. Wells is expecting us, Robert said. Robert Chen and family. Of course, Mr. Chen. She's asked me to escort you personally. The receptionist, her name tag said Jennifer, stood and gestured toward the elevators. Ms. Wells is in the research wing. She thought you'd want to start there, rather than in the executive offices. They rode to the third floor in silence. Robert watched the numbers tick up and tried to ignore the knot in his stomach. This was a mistake. He didn't belong here. These weren't his people. This wasn't his world. The elevator doors opened. Catherine stood waiting, and Robert barely recognized her. Gone was the hospital gown and IV line. She was dressed in dark jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back, looking more like a graduate student than a CEO. Still pale, still obviously sick, but standing steady. Robert, Grace, Maya, thank you for coming. She shook each of their hands solemnly, even Maya's. I know this is strange, but I promise it'll be worth your time. Can we see the inventions? Maya asked immediately. Absolutely, but first. Catherine pulled out 3 badges on lanyards. You'll need these. Security protocol. Robert, yours has full access. Grace, Maya, yours are visitor passes, but they'll get you anywhere I can take you. Robert clipped the badge on, feeling the weight of it. His photo was already on there. They must have pulled it from his driver's license. The title underneath read, Consulting Engineer. I haven't accepted the job, he said. I know, but if anyone asks, that's your cover. Easier than explaining every 5 minutes. Catherine started walking, gesturing for them to follow. The research wing is divided into 3 sections. Medical devices, water purification systems, and renewable energy applications. We'll start with medical. They passed through a security door into a corridor lined with labs. Through the glass walls, Robert could see engineers working, real engineers with advanced equipment solving real problems. His hands itched to touch something, to build something, to be part of it. Catherine stopped at a lab where a young woman was bent over a workbench, muttering to herself. Dr. Patel, you have visitors? The woman looked up startled, then scrambled to her feet when she saw Catherine. Ms. Wells, I wasn't expecting. We're not ready for... Relax, Priya. This is Robert Chen, the engineer I told you about. Robert, this is Dr. Priya Patel, lead researcher on the dialysis project. Priya's eyes went wide. The bridge guy. You're the bridge guy. That's me, Robert said, uncomfortable with the designation. You saved her life. We all thought when we heard about the accident. Priya stopped, collected herself. Sorry, it's just Ms. Wells is kind of important around here. So I'm gathering. Catherine gestured to the workbench. Show him what you're working on. Priya lit up immediately, all nervousness disappearing into enthusiasm. Okay, so the challenge with traditional dialysis is it requires huge amounts of clean water, consistent power, and trained technicians, none of which exist in most of the places that need it most. So we're developing a portable system that uses revolutionary filtration. She pulled over what looked like a large briefcase. When she opened it, Robert saw immediately what they were trying to do. The design was elegant but flawed. The filtration membrane was too complex. The power requirements too high. The whole thing would fail in the field within weeks. May I? He asked, reaching for it. Please. Robert picked up the device, turning it over his engineer's brain, automatically cataloging problems and solutions. This manifold connection, it's your failure point. You're getting leaks here, right? Priya's jaw dropped. How did you... The seal design won't hold up to pressure variations. And this pump. He tapped it. Too many moving parts. Every component is a potential breakdown in the field. You need simpler. More robust. That's what Dr. Harrison kept saying before he left, Priya admitted. But none of us could figure out how to simplify it without losing functionality. Dual-stage approach, Robert said, already seeing it in his mind. Separate the filtration processes. Use gravity where you can. Reduce the pump to bare essentials. And this membrane, what are you using? Polymer composite. It's cutting edge. It's also expensive and fragile. What about a ceramic hybrid? Lower tech, but more durable. Easier to repair in the field. Priya was staring at him like he'd just spoken another language. That could actually work. But the filtration rate would be slower, yes, but consistency matters more than speed. A system that works reliably at 70% efficiency is better than one that works brilliantly twice, then breaks. Catherine was smiling. Actually smiling. Robert, how long would it take you to mock up a prototype using your approach? Depends on your shop capabilities. If you've got a decent machine room, I could have something testable in a week. We have an excellent machine room, and a team of engineers who'd kill to learn from someone with your practical experience. Catherine turned to Priya. Clear Robert's schedule. Whatever he needs, he gets. Highest priority. Wait, Robert said. I haven't agreed to 1 week, Catherine interrupted. That's all I'm asking. 1 week to see if your approach works. If it doesn't, you go back to Morrison with my thanks and a consulting fee that'll cover 6 months of your bills. If it does... She let that hang. Grace tugged Robert's sleeve. Dad, you have to. Honey, look at your face. You're already designing it in your head. I can tell. Robert glanced at Maya, who was exploring the lab with wide eyes, touching everything she was allowed to touch, asking Priya a million questions. Then at Grace, who was looking at him with Sarah's expression, the one that said, "Stop being afraid and live." 1 week, he said finally. But I'll need to give Morrison notice. Already done, Catherine said. I called Marcus this morning, told him we were borrowing you for an emergency consulting project. He was surprisingly agreeable once I mentioned the consulting fee Aurora would be paying Morrison for your time. You called my boss. I called your supervisor and made it worth his while to let you go. Marcus thinks you're doing a short-term contract. He doesn't need to know it might become permanent. Robert should have been angry, should have felt manipulated. But instead he felt something else, something that had been dormant for 12 years. Excitement. Show me the machine shop, he said. Catherine's smile widened. This way. They spent the next 4 hours in the research wing. Catherine walked them through project after project water purification systems for villages without infrastructure, portable vaccine refrigeration for remote clinics, solar-powered educational tablets for schools without electricity. Every single thing designed not for profit, but for impact. Maya asked approximately 800 questions. Grace took notes on her phone. And Robert felt his brain waking up. Really waking up for the first time in over a decade. By the time they broke for lunch in Aurora's cafeteria, which was less cafeteria and more restaurant, Robert's mind was spinning with possibilities. This is insane, he said to Catherine over sandwiches that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. All of this, the scope, the mission, how do you fund it? Carefully, Catherine said. Aurora is a public benefit corporation. We have investors, but they're mission-aligned. They accept lower returns in exchange for social impact. We also patent some technologies and license them commercially. Things like our water filtration systems have industrial applications. That revenue funds the humanitarian work. And when you're gone, the question came out harsher than Robert intended. Grace kicked him under the table, but Catherine didn't flinch. That's why I need you. The board is already circling. Half of them want to convert Aurora to a traditional for-profit after I die. Maximize shareholder value. All that bullshit. The other half are fighting to maintain the mission. But they need a win. Something big enough, revolutionary enough that abandoning the humanitarian focus would be unconscionable. The dialysis system. Exactly. If we can get it working, get it into the field, prove the model works, it'll cement Aurora's legacy, make it impossible to pivot away from the mission without massive public backlash. Catherine pushed her sandwich away, appetite clearly gone. But I'm running out of time. The cancer's aggressive. I'm on borrowed months. Maya was sitting next to them, and her small hand reached out to touch Catherine's arm. My mom died of cancer too. The table went silent. Catherine looked at Maya with something raw in her expression. I'm sorry. That must have been very hard. It was. But Dad says she's still with us. In here. Maya tapped her chest. So even when you die, your inventions will still be helping people. That's like being alive forever, kind of. Robert's throat tightened. He reached for Maya, pulled her close. Baby. It's true, though, Maya insisted. Right, Ms. Wells? Right, Catherine said softly. That's exactly right. After lunch, Catherine took them to her office. It was smaller than Robert expected, more library than executive suite, with bookshelves covering 2 walls and a desk that looked actually used rather than decorative. Grace, Maya, there's a lounge down the hall with games and snacks. Jennifer can take you. I need to talk to your dad alone for a few minutes. Grace looked at Robert, who nodded. It's fine. I'll come get you in a bit. After the girls left, Catherine closed the door and leaned against her desk. You're going to take the job. I haven't decided. Yes, you have. I saw your face in that lab. You were already redesigning half our projects. She smiled. But you're scared, and I need to know why. Robert sat in one of the chairs facing her desk. Because this feels too good to be true. Because people don't just hand out dream jobs to factory workers they barely know. Because... He stopped. Because you don't trust me. That too. Fair. Catherine moved to sit behind her desk, and Robert noticed how carefully she moved. How much effort it took. The cancer was eating her alive slowly but surely. Let me tell you a story. About my father. Catherine, please, you need to hear this. She pulled a photo from her desk drawer. An older man, Middle Eastern, features warm smile. This is Samuel Wells, born Samir Webe in Beirut. Came to America at 19 with nothing. Worked factory jobs probably not unlike Morrison while putting himself through engineering school. Built Westlake from scratch. Robert took the photo. The man looked kind. Tired but kind. He was a good man, Catherine continued. Not perfect. He made mistakes. But he believed in building things that mattered. Creating jobs that respected workers. He used to say, profit is what you take, but legacy is what you leave. Then why did you sell Westlake to vultures? Because I was 28 and terrified and listening to people who didn't give a shit about his legacy. The board, the consultants. They all said sell, so I sold. I didn't do due diligence. Didn't protect the workers in the sale terms. I trusted that the buyers would honor what my father built. Catherine's hands clenched. They didn't. They stripped it for parts. And people like you paid the price. That doesn't... I'm not asking you to forgive me, Robert. I'm asking you to let me fix it. Or at least try to fix it. My father died before he could finish the dialysis project. It was his dream. A way to bring affordable kidney treatment to the places he came from. The communities he left behind. Her voice cracked. I've been trying to finish it for 12 years, and I'm so close. But I can't do it alone. Robert stared at the photo of Samuel Wells. A man who'd come from nothing. Who'd worked factory jobs. Who'd believed in building things that mattered. A man not unlike Robert himself. Why me specifically? He asked. You could hire dozens of engineers with better credentials. Because you jumped into a river. You didn't overthink it, didn't calculate risks. You saw someone drowning and you acted. That's the kind of person my father was. That's the kind of person I need finishing his work. I'm not a hero, Catherine. I'm just a father who'd do anything for his daughters. An engineer who's been wasting his talents for 12 years. A man who made a split-second decision to save someone he had every reason to hate. Catherine leaned forward. That's exactly who I need. Someone who leads with their heart, but backs it up with their brain. Robert sat in silence, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. 1 week, Catherine said again. Build me a prototype. Show me I'm right about you. Then we'll talk about the rest. And if I'm not right for this, if I fail, then at least we tried. And I'll pay you enough that your girls won't have to worry about money for a while. But Robert, she met his eyes. You won't fail. I've done my research. I know what you're capable of. You barely know me. I know you raised 2 incredible daughters alone. I know you've been working 3 jobs to keep them fed and housed and in good schools. I know you spent your nights helping Grace with physics homework and teaching Maya how to build things. I know... Catherine's voice softened. I know you're exactly the kind of man my father would have wanted finishing his life's work. Robert's eyes burned. He looked away, trying to compose himself. Take the rest of the day, Catherine said. Go home. Talk to your daughters. Think about it. Tomorrow morning, if you show up, we'll get started. If you don't, she shrugged. Then I'll figure out Plan B. What is Plan B? There isn't one, but you don't need to know that. Robert stood, took one last look at the photo of Samuel Wells, handed it back to Catherine. I'll be here tomorrow, he said. 7 a.m. Catherine's relief was visible. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might be terrible at this. You won't be. Robert found Grace and Maya in the lounge, Maya building something with magnetic blocks while Grace scrolled through her phone. Both looked up when he entered. So, Grace asked. So I'm going to try it. 1 week. Build a prototype. See if I can actually do this. Maya jumped up. Does that mean we're rich now? It means Dad's going to try something new, Grace corrected. Right, Dad? Right. They drove home as the sun set, the truck feeling smaller than usual after a day in Aurora's expansive campus. Maya fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately. Grace stayed awake, watching the world pass by through the window. Mom would be proud, she said suddenly. Robert's hands tightened on the wheel. You think? I know. Remember what she used to say about you? Which thing? That you were born to build things that mattered? That factory work was just temporary until you found your way back. Grace looked at him. I think you found your way back, Dad. It's only 1 week, and I might... You won't fail. You're going to do this, and it's going to be amazing, and we're going to be okay. Robert wanted to believe her, wanted to let himself hope, but hope was dangerous. Hope was what broke you when things fell apart. They pulled into their driveway. The house looked smaller too after Aurora, more worn, but it was theirs, paid for by his own sweat and sacrifice, nothing given, everything earned. Come on, Grace said, unbuckling. Let's get Maya inside, and Dad. Tomorrow you're going to change our lives. I can feel it. That night, Robert lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His mind wouldn't stop designing, calculating, problem-solving. The dialysis system, the filtration challenge, the power requirements. It all swirled together in a beautiful, complicated puzzle that his brain desperately wanted to solve. At 2 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went downstairs to the kitchen. Grabbed a notebook, one of Maya's old school ones with puppies on the cover, and started sketching. The design flowed out of him like water, years of pent-up engineering knowledge finally finding release. He didn't hear Grace come downstairs until she spoke. Can't sleep. Robert looked up, startled. Sorry, did I wake you? No, I was awake too. She sat across from him, looking at his sketches. Is that the dialysis thing? Yeah, I keep seeing how to fix it. The problems are actually pretty straightforward once you strip away the overcomplicated. He stopped. Sorry, you don't want to hear about this. I always want to hear about it, Dad. You never talk about engineering anymore, not since Mom died. But I remember. I remember you and her staying up late, you explaining your projects, her asking questions. You were happy then. I'm happy now. You're surviving now. That's not the same thing. Robert set down his pencil. When did you get so wise? When I had to grow up faster than I should have. Grace's voice was matter-of-fact, not accusatory. But I don't regret it. And I don't want you to regret not trying this. So tomorrow, you're going to go to Aurora. And you're going to build something amazing. And you're going to stop being afraid that being happy means forgetting Mom. Grace. She wouldn't want that, Dad. She'd want you to live, really live, not just exist. His daughter stood, kissed his forehead. Now finish your designs. Tomorrow's a big day. She went back upstairs, leaving Robert alone with his sketches and his thoughts. And for the first time in 12 years, Robert Chen let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved a second chance. He worked until dawn, filling page after page with calculations and designs. By the time the sun rose, he had a complete preliminary schematic for a redesigned dialysis system. Simpler, more robust, exactly what Aurora needed. He showered, dressed in his least worn jeans and a button-down shirt Sarah had bought him years ago. Made breakfast for the girls, actual pancakes, not frozen ones, because this felt like a day that deserved real pancakes. Maya noticed immediately. Are these celebration pancakes? Maybe. What are we celebrating? New beginnings, Robert said, flipping one onto her plate. And second chances, and really good engineering. Grace smiled into her orange juice. At 6:45 a.m., Robert's phone rang. Catherine. Please tell me you're not calling to cancel, he said. I'm calling to tell you that Priya's been up all night running simulations based on your suggestions yesterday. Your dual-stage approach works. She's beside herself. We need you here now. I was planning on 7. Now, Robert, this is happening. We're doing this. Robert looked at his daughters, both watching him with expectant faces. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, grabbed his notebook, kissed both girls. Wish me luck. You don't need luck, Maya said confidently. You're the best builder ever. Grace just hugged him. Go change the world, Dad. Robert drove to Aurora with his heart pounding. This was it. The moment everything changed. No more factory floors. No more wasted potential. No more living half a life. When he pulled into the parking lot, Catherine was waiting outside the building. Still looked exhausted. Still obviously sick. But there was fire in her eyes. Ready? She asked. Ready. They walked through the doors together, and Robert Chen stepped into the future he'd been too afraid to imagine. Behind them, the glass doors closed with a soft whisper. Ahead lay possibility. The machine shop at Aurora was 3 times the size of Morrison's entire factory floor. Robert stood in the doorway just taking it in. CNC machines he'd only seen in textbooks. 3D printers that could work with materials he'd never touched. Tools so new they probably still had tags on them. This is where you'll be working, Catherine said behind him. The team's waiting inside. Team. You didn't think I'd make you do this alone, did you? She led him through the shop to where 5 people stood clustered around a workbench. Priya was there, practically vibrating with excitement. The others Robert didn't know. Everyone, this is Robert Chen. Robert, this is your team. You've met Priya. That's Marcus Tang, Fabrication Specialist. Jennifer Rodriguez, Electrical Systems. David Kim, Software Integration. And that's Elena Volkov, our Material Scientist. They all stared at him. Robert stared back. I don't know how to manage people, he said to Catherine. I've been working alone for 12 years. Then it's time you learned. Catherine moved to the workbench where Robert's sketches from last night were already laid out. Someone had photographed them and blown them up. You have the vision. They have the specialized skills. Together, you make it work. Ms. Wells, Marcus spoke up. With all respect, we've been working on this project for 3 years. Are we really scrapping everything to start over based on... He gestured at the sketches. Drawings in a puppy notebook. Yes, Catherine said flatly. Because those drawings solve problems you've been stuck on for months. Robert, show them. Robert's mouth was dry. Public speaking wasn't his thing. Leading wasn't his thing. But Catherine was looking at him with an expression that said, "You can do this," and somehow that was enough. The problem with your current design, he started moving to the workbench, is you're trying to make it too smart, too efficient. You're building for a lab environment, not the real world. We're building for clinics in developing countries, Elena interrupted. That is the real world. No clinics in developing countries are the field. The real world is where things break, where power cuts out mid-treatment, where the nearest replacement part is 1,000 miles away, and the technician fixing it learned medicine from a manual not medical school. He pulled one of the prototype components toward him. This filtration membrane, it's brilliant, cutting edge, and it'll fail within a month in high humidity. We've tested it, in a controlled environment. I guarantee you didn't test it in a room with no AC where the temperature swings 40 degrees between day and night, where dust gets into everything. Robert met Elena's eyes. I'm not criticizing your work. I'm saying we need to design for Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, so we make it impossible for things to go wrong. Priya leaned forward. How? Redundancy. Simplicity. We split the filtration into 2 stages. If stage 1 fails, stage 2 still functions at reduced capacity. Better than nothing. We minimize moving parts in the pump system. We use materials that can handle temperature extremes and physical abuse. We design so a village health worker with basic tools can repair it. That'll reduce efficiency, David said, by maybe 20%. But it'll increase reliability by 200%. What's better, a system that works perfectly until it breaks, or one that works adequately forever? The team exchanged glances. Show us, Marcus said finally. Robert spent the next 6 hours walking them through his redesign. At first they pushed back. These were people with advanced degrees, years of experience, who didn't love being told their approach was wrong. But as Robert explained, his reasoning, backed up by practical examples from his factory work, their resistance shifted to engagement. By lunch they were building together. Catherine watched from the doorway, a small smile on her face, before disappearing to deal with whatever CEOs dealt with. Okay, Priya said around 2 p.m., staring at the preliminary mock-up they'd assembled. I hate that this works. Why hate it? Robert was elbow-deep in the pump assembly trying to simplify the valve system. Because it's so obvious. We've been overcomplicating this for months, and you walked in and solved it in a day. That's because you're all smarter than me. You were thinking about elegant solutions. I'm thinking about what won't break. Robert straightened, wiping grease on his jeans. Plus, I've spent 12 years watching machines fail in creative ways. You learn real fast what's robust and what's garbage. The factory job, Jennifer said, must have been frustrating. Someone with your skills. It kept my kids fed. That's what mattered. The room went quiet. Robert realized he'd said it more harshly than intended. Sorry, he muttered. It was what I needed to do. And I'm grateful Morrison gave me that work. But yeah, he gestured at the dialysis prototype. This is what I went to school for, what I thought I'd be doing with my life. What happened? David asked. If you don't mind me asking. Robert considered deflecting, but these people were trusting him to lead them. They deserved honesty. I got laid off from Westlake Industries 12 years ago. Company got sold, new owners cleaned house. I had a pregnant wife, a 4-year-old daughter, and suddenly no job. Morrison was hiring, so that's where I went. That's rough, man, Marcus said. Yeah. Then my wife got sick. Cancer. Treatment was expensive. Really expensive. Factory insurance didn't cover half of what she needed. So I worked overtime, picked up weekend shifts, did everything I could. It wasn't enough. Robert's hands stilled on the pump assembly. She died 4 years ago, and I've been just existing since then, going through motions, making sure the girls were okay. Jesus, Priya whispered. But yesterday Ms. Wells offered me a chance to do something that matters again. So I'm here, trying to build something that might save other families from what mine went through. Robert looked up at his team. That's why I care so much about making this work in the field, because theoretical patients aren't theoretical to the people who love them. Elena cleared her throat. My grandmother died of kidney failure, in Russia. The nearest dialysis center was 300 kilometers away. She couldn't make the journey. My cousin, David added quietly, in the Philippines, same story. My uncle, Marcus said, happened last year. They all stood there, the weight of their collective losses binding them together. Then let's make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else, Robert said. Let's finish this thing. They worked until midnight. Catherine had to physically kick them out of the lab, threatening to revoke access cards if they didn't go home and sleep. You're no good to me, exhausted, she said, but she was smiling. Robert, a word before you go. After the team left, Catherine leaned against the workbench. She looked worse than this morning, paler, more drawn. The day had cost her. You should be resting, Robert said. I'll rest when I'm dead, which granted won't be long. But until then, she gestured at the prototype. This is remarkable. You pulled them together in one day. Got them excited again. Do you have any idea how rare that is? They're good people. They just needed direction. They needed a leader. There's a difference. Catherine pulled out her phone, showed him something. The board is meeting next week. I need to show them progress, something concrete. Can you have a working prototype by then? Working as in functional, or working as in field ready? Functional. Proof of concept. Show them this approach works. Robert studied the current assembly. If nothing goes wrong, maybe. But that's a tight timeline. I know. But Robert... Catherine's voice dropped. The board is looking for any excuse to pivot away from humanitarian work after I'm gone. They want to focus on profitable ventures, consumer markets. This prototype is our ammunition, our proof that the mission is viable. No pressure or anything. I wouldn't have hired you if I didn't think you could handle pressure. You jumped into a river, remember? That was instinct. This is engineering. Same thing. You see a problem, you solve it. Doesn't matter if it's a drowning woman or a medical device. You don't overthink, you just do. Catherine straightened, wincing slightly. Go home, hug your daughters. Come back tomorrow, ready to change the world. Robert drove home with his mind racing. 6 days to build a working prototype. 6 days to prove to Aurora's board that humanitarian engineering could succeed. 6 days to justify Catherine's faith in him. Grace was still awake when he got home, curled up on the couch with a textbook. How was day 1? She asked. Intense. Good. Terrifying. Robert collapsed into the armchair. We have to have a working prototype by next week. Can you do it? I don't know, maybe. If everything goes perfectly. Then it'll go perfectly, because you're doing it. Grace marked her place in the textbook. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? Like actually happy, not just making the best of it happy? Robert thought about the question. About the 12 years of existing versus living. About the feeling in the machine shop today, solving real problems with real stakes. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am. Or at least I'm remembering what happy feels like. Good. You deserve it. We deserve it. All 3 of us. Grace smiled. I'm going to bed. Try not to stay up all night designing things. No promises. She headed upstairs, leaving Robert alone with his thoughts. He should sleep, should rest, but his mind was already back in the lab, running through assembly sequences, calculating tolerances, identifying potential failure points. His phone buzzed. Text from Catherine. Thank you for today. You gave my team hope again. Sleep well. Robert typed back, Thank you for the chance. See you tomorrow. He sat in the quiet house thinking about second chances and dying women and the strange paths life takes. A month ago, he'd been trudging through another factory shift, counting down to retirement, half dead inside. Now, he was leading a team, building technology that could save lives, feeling alive for the first time since Sarah died. All because he'd jumped into a river. The next 5 days were a blur of work problem solving and tiny disasters that threatened to derail everything. The pump seals leaked. The filtration membrane clogged faster than expected. The power regulation system kept frying circuits. But slowly, incrementally, they fixed each problem. Robert worked 18-hour days. Catherine appeared periodically checking progress, offering encouragement, looking progressively worse. The cancer was winning. Everyone could see it, but she refused to slow down. On day 3, she collapsed in the lab. Robert caught her before she hit the floor, shouting for someone to call 911. Catherine's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "I'm fine," she mumbled. "You're not fine. You just passed out." "Just tired. Have to the board meeting." "Screw the board meeting, you need a hospital." No hospitals. Just need to rest. 5 minutes. But it wasn't 5 minutes. The paramedics came. Catherine argued with them until Robert stepped in. "Either you go to the hospital voluntarily, or I tell them you're not mentally competent to refuse treatment. Your choice." Catherine glared at him. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me. You hired me to solve problems. Right now, you're the problem. I hate you. You'll get over it. Now get in the ambulance." They kept her overnight for observation. Robert visited after work, bringing terrible hospital coffee and updates on the prototype. "We're close," he said, sitting in the chair beside her bed. "Really close. The filtration is working. Power draw is within acceptable ranges. We just need to solve the interface issue, make it simple enough for non-technical users." Catherine sipped the coffee, made a face. "This is terrible." "Hospital coffee always is. Drink it anyway." "Bossy?" "Someone has to be, since you won't take care of yourself." "I don't have time to take care of myself, Robert. I have maybe 2 months left. Every day I spend in a hospital bed is a day I'm not working. And every day you work yourself to death is a day closer to 0 months." Robert set down his coffee. "Catherine, you've built something incredible. Aurora will outlive you. That's the whole point. But you have to let other people carry it forward. You have to trust us." "I do trust you. It's the board I don't trust." "Then let's give them something they can't argue with. A prototype so good, so revolutionary that abandoning it would be insane." "Can you do that in 3 days?" "If you rest and stop micromanaging, yes." Catherine smiled weakly. "Deal." They shook on it. Robert left the hospital feeling the weight of his promise. 3 days. The board meeting was Friday. Today was Tuesday. He had 72 hours to deliver a miracle. He called a team meeting at 6 a.m. Wednesday. "All right, people, we're down to the wire. Ms. Wells is in the hospital. Don't freak out, she's fine, just exhausted. But that means we're on our own for the next few days. We have to have a functioning prototype by Friday morning." "That's impossible," Elena said. "Probably, but we're doing it anyway." Robert pulled up the project timeline. "Here's how. We split into 2 teams. Team A focuses on finalizing the filtration assembly. Team B handles power systems and user interface. I'll float between both, handling integration issues. We work in 8-hour shifts, rotating so someone's always fresh. No one works more than 16 hours straight." "What about you?" Priya asked. "I'll sleep when we're done." "Robert, I'm serious. You all need to be sharp. I just need to be functional. Now let's move." They moved. Wednesday was a blur of caffeine and incremental progress. The filtration assembly came together beautifully. The power system less so. They kept having voltage regulation issues that caused random shutdowns. Thursday morning, David figured out the problem. "We're overthinking it. Again. Robert, What if we just use a capacitor bank to smooth the input old-school solution? Will it work? It's not elegant, but yeah, it'll work. Then do it. Elegant doesn't matter. Working matters. By Thursday evening, they had a functioning prototype. Rough around the edges, definitely still needing refinement, but it worked. Water went in. Filtered blood came out. The pumps ran smoothly. The power draw was acceptable. "We did it," Priya whispered, staring at the device. "We actually did it." "We did it," Robert confirmed. "Now we test it." They ran the prototype through every stress test they could think of. Power fluctuations, temperature variations, continuous operation cycles. It held up. Not perfectly, there were quirks issues that would need addressing, but it functioned. At 3 a.m. Friday morning, Robert called Catherine. "We're ready," he said when she answered. "The prototype works." "Robert, it's 3 a.m. I know, but you need to know, we're ready for the board." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'm coming in." "Catherine, you should—" "I'm coming in. This is my company, my father's legacy. I'm not missing this." She hung up. Robert looked at his exhausted team sprawled around the lab in various states of consciousness. "She's coming in," he announced. "Of course she is," Marcus muttered. "Stubborn woman." "Stubbornness is why we're here," Robert said. "Now everyone go home, shower, change, look presentable. Board meeting is at 10 a.m. We need to blow their minds." Catherine arrived at 9 a.m., looking like death warmed over. But she was wearing a power suit, and her armor face was in place, all traces of vulnerability hidden. "Show me," she said. They showed her. Catherine watched the prototype run through a complete filtration cycle, her expression unreadable. When it finished, she turned to Robert. "This is it," she said softly. "This is what my father dreamed of. Simple, robust, exactly what's needed. It still needs refinement. It's perfect. Not finished, but perfect." She looked at the team. "You've all done incredible work. Thank you." "We had a good leader," Priya said, nodding at Robert. Robert felt his ears burn. "I just coordinated. You all did the actual—" "Take the compliment," Catherine interrupted. "You earned it. Now let's go show the board what humanitarian engineering looks like." The board meeting was held in Aurora's main conference room. 12 people sat around a massive table, investors, advisors, business leaders. All eyes turned to Catherine as she entered Robert and the team behind her. "Thank you all for coming," Catherine began. "I know you're concerned about Aurora's direction after my passing. I know half of you want to pivot to commercial ventures, higher profit margins, better returns. But before you make any decisions, I want you to see something." She nodded to Robert. He wheeled in the prototype hands, sweating, heart pounding. "This is the LifeStream portable dialysis system," Robert said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Developed over the past 6 days by our team. It provides kidney filtration therapy using 70% less water than traditional systems, operates on minimal power, and is simple enough for a village health worker to maintain with basic tools." He started the demonstration. The board watched in silence as the prototype ran through its cycle. Robert explained each component, each design choice, each problem they'd solved. He talked about field conditions, about real-world failures, about designing for people who couldn't just call a technician when something broke. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then one board member, an older man, gray hair, expensive suit, spoke up. "This is impressive. But what's the commercial viability? Who pays for this?" "A mix of NGO funding, government contracts, and cross-subsidization from our commercial product lines," Catherine answered. "The same model we've always used. But the margins are lower than they could be. Yes, but the impact is exponentially higher." Catherine stood despite obvious effort. "My father built Westlake on the principle that business exists to serve people, not the other way around. When he died, I lost sight of that. I sold his company to people who stripped it for parts, who destroyed lives in pursuit of quarterly earnings. Robert watched several board members shift uncomfortably. I started Aurora to do better, Catherine continued. To build technology that matters, that serves communities who've been ignored by the market because they're not profitable enough. And yes, that means lower returns, but it also means we change lives. We save lives. Isn't that worth something? Ms. Wells. Another board member said gently, we all respect your vision, but when you're gone, this company needs to be sustainable. We have investors to answer to. Then answer to them with this. Catherine gestured at the prototype. Tell them Aurora built a dialysis system that will save thousands of lives, tens of thousands, maybe more. Tell them we're licensing the technology to humanitarian organizations at cost. Tell them we're proving that profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. And if they demand higher returns, then they can sell their shares. Because this, Catherine's voice rang out strong despite her weakness. This is what Aurora is, what it will always be. And if you try to change that after I'm gone, you'll face a public relations nightmare that'll tank your stock price anyway. So you might as well do the right thing and benefit from it. The room erupted in murmured conversations. Robert stood by the prototype watching Catherine fight for her father's legacy, for the mission, for everything she believed in. Finally, the gray-haired board member spoke again. All right, we'll give you 1 year. After Ms. Wells passes, Aurora continues the humanitarian focus for 12 months. We'll assess financial performance and social impact. If the model proves sustainable, we maintain course. If not, we revisit the commercial pivot. Fair. Catherine looked at Robert. He gave a tiny nod. Fair, she agreed. 1 year. The meeting adjourned. Board members filed out some stopping to examine the prototype, others avoiding it like it might contaminate them with compassion. When they were alone, Catherine sat down heavily. You okay? Robert asked. I just bought Aurora 1 year, that's all. 1 year to prove the mission works. Then we'll prove it. We'll get this device into the field. We'll show them it works. We'll make sure your father's legacy. Our legacy, Catherine interrupted. Yours too now. You're part of this, Robert. Whether you like it or not, you're part of what Aurora becomes. Robert looked at the prototype, at Catherine, at the choice point his life had reached. Yeah, he said finally. I guess I am. Catherine smiled. Then her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. This time, Robert didn't hesitate. He called 911, started CPR, barked orders at Priya to get the crash cart from the medical wing. Don't you dare die, he muttered, as he compressed her chest. Not after that speech. Not after come on, Catherine. Come on. The paramedics arrived, took over, rushed her away. Robert stood in the empty conference room, the prototype still running its cycle, and realized something. He cared about Catherine Wells. Not just as a boss or a second chance, but as a person. A flawed, stubborn, dying woman who was trying to fix her mistakes before time ran out. And he was going to help her do it, even if it killed him. The hospital wouldn't let Robert pass the ICU doors. Family only, the nurse said, for the third time, her patience wearing thin. I'm her... Robert stopped. What was he? Employee friend, the guy who pulled her from a river 3 weeks ago. She doesn't have family. I'm all she's got. Sir, I understand, but the rules? The rules can wait. A woman in surgical scrubs appeared pulling off a mask. Dr. Morrison, I treated Ms. Wells when she first came in. You're Robert Chen. Yes. She's been asking for you. Come on. The nurse started to protest, but Dr. Morrison was already leading Robert through the doors. They walked past rooms filled with beeping machines and worried families, the smell of antiseptic burning Robert's nose. How bad is it? He asked. Her body's shutting down. The cancer's spread faster than we thought. Liver's failing. Kidneys are barely functioning. She's got days, maybe a week if we're lucky. Dr. Morrison stopped outside a room. She's refusing additional treatment. Says she wants to stay lucid, make decisions while she still can. That sounds like her. She also made me promise to tell you something about the board meeting. She said, Dr. Morrison checked her notes. She said you need to keep fighting, that Aurora needs you, that her father would have... Her voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry. I've been treating Catherine for months. This part never gets easier. Robert pushed open the door. Catherine lay in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped rhythmically. She looked impossibly small, impossibly fragile. But when she saw Robert, she smiled. You look terrible, she said, her voice weak. Right back at you. Robert pulled a chair beside her bed. You scared the hell out of me. Sorry. Wasn't planning on collapsing during my big dramatic speech. Ruined the moment. The speech was good. They gave us a year. I know, I was conscious for that part. It was the standing ovation I missed. Catherine tried to laugh, ended up coughing instead. Robert handed her water, helped her drink. Thank you. For what? For finishing the prototype. For leading the team. For... She gestured vaguely. All of it. You stepped up. Just like I knew you would. I had good motivation, stubborn boss who wouldn't take no for an answer. Damn right. Catherine's smile faded. Robert, we need to talk about what happens next. After I... Don't. We have to. I'm dying. Could be days. I need to know Aurora's in good hands. Robert's throat tightened. The board will figure something out. The board will tear apart everything my father built if someone doesn't stop them. I need you to stop them. I'm just an engineer, Catherine. I don't know anything about running a company. Neither did I when my father died. I learned. So will you. She reached for his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. I'm making you director of engineering. Full authority over all humanitarian projects. The board can't override you without a supermajority vote, which they won't get, because I've stacked the deck. 3 board members are mission aligned, and they'll back you. Catherine. Let me finish. I'm also setting up a trust. Half my shares go to the foundation. The other half? She paused. The other half I'm splitting between you and the engineering team. Not enough to control the company, but enough that the board has to listen to you. Robert pulled his hand back. I can't accept that. You don't have a choice. It's already done. My lawyers filed the paperwork yesterday. Why would you? Because you jumped into a river for me. Because you built a prototype in 6 days that my team couldn't crack in 3 years. Because when I collapsed, you didn't run. You stayed. Catherine's eyes were wet. Because my father would have loved you, would have recognized himself in you, and I think... Her voice broke. I think that matters. Robert couldn't speak. The weight of what she was giving him, the responsibility, the trust, the future of Aurora, pressed down like physical force. I'm scared, he admitted finally. Good. Fear means you understand what's at stake. But Robert... Catherine squeezed his hand again. You can do this. I know you can, and you won't be alone. Priya Marcus, the whole team, they'll support you. The mission-aligned board members will back you. And Grace and Maya? She smiled. Those girls are going to be so proud of their father. They barely know you. They know you saved my life. They know I gave you a second chance. That's enough. Catherine's eyes were closing, exhaustion pulling her under. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let the board destroy this. Don't let profit override purpose. Keep Aurora focused on what matters, on people who need help, on... She yawned. On finishing what my father started. I promise. Good. Now get out of here. You smell like machine oil and desperation. Go home, shower, hug your daughters. Come back tomorrow. Robert stood to leave. Robert? He turned back. Thank you, Catherine whispered, for giving me hope, for reminding me why this matters, for... Her eyes closed. For jumping. Robert left the hospital with tears streaming down his face. He sat in his truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes just trying to process. Catherine was dying, really dying, in days maybe less, and she'd just handed him the keys to her father's legacy, trusting him to protect it from people who'd tear it apart for profit. His phone rang. Grace. Dad, where are you? It's almost midnight. His voice cracked. I'm on my way home, sweetheart. What happened? Is Ms. Wells okay? No, she's not okay. Robert couldn't say it. I'll explain when I get there. He drove home on autopilot, his mind spinning. The house was lit up when he arrived. Grace and Maya both waiting in the living room, still dressed. We saw the news, Grace said immediately. About Ms. Wells collapsing during the board meeting, about the ambulance. Robert sat heavily on the couch. She's dying, for real this time, days, maybe a week. Maya climbed into his lap, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Like Mom. Yeah, baby, like Mom. That's not fair. No, it's not. Grace sat beside them, her expression tight. What happens to your job, to Aurora? Catherine made me director of engineering, gave me authority over the humanitarian projects, and… Robert still couldn't believe it. She's giving me and the team shares in the company, enough that we have a real vote in Aurora's future. That's amazing, Dad. It's terrifying. I don't know what I'm doing. I've been on the job for less than 2 weeks, and suddenly I'm supposed to protect her father's entire legacy from a board of directors who want to gut it for profit. So you'll figure it out, Grace said simply. Like you always do. Grace, this isn't fixing a dishwasher. This is what Mom would have wanted you to do. Stand up for something that matters. Use your skills to help people. Stop being afraid of your own potential. Grace's voice was firm. Ms. Wells saw that in you. That's why she picked you. And Dad… She took his hand. She's right. You can do this. Maya nodded against his chest. You're the best builder ever. You can build anything. Robert held his daughters close, drawing strength from their certainty. They believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. Just like Sarah had. Just like Catherine did. Okay, he said finally. Okay, I'll try. You'll do more than try, Grace said. You'll succeed, because you have to. They sat together in silence, a small family holding tight against an uncertain future. Robert called out sick the next day. Not from Morrison, he'd officially resigned 2 weeks ago, though it felt like years. Called out from Aurora. Told Priya he needed a day with his daughters, that they'd been patient long enough. They spent Saturday doing normal things. Pancakes for breakfast, trip to the library, Maya's favorite park, even though it was cold and gray. They got ice cream from the place Sarah used to take them where the owner still remembered their orders. Your mom loved the mint chip, Robert said, watching Maya attack her cone with determination. I know, you tell us every time. Do I? Yeah, but it's okay. We like hearing about her. Maya looked up at him, chocolate smeared across her face. Do you think Ms. Wells will be with Mom? After… Grace shot her sister a look. Maya, that's not… It's okay, Robert interrupted. I don't know, baby. I'd like to think so. Your mom was good at taking care of people. I bet she'd take care of Ms. Wells, too. Good. Because Ms. Wells seems lonely, even with all her money and her big company. She seems sad. Out of the mouths of children, Robert thought. Maya had seen what he'd been too caught up to notice. Catherine was lonely. Had probably been lonely for years, building her father's dream, but having no one to share it with. They got home late afternoon. Robert was making dinner when his phone rang. Dr. Morrison. Mr. Chen, you should come. Catherine's asking for you. And… She paused. It won't be long now. Robert's stomach dropped. I'm on my way. He looked at Grace and Maya both doing homework at the kitchen table. I have to go to the hospital. They both stood immediately. We're coming, Grace said. You don't have to. We're coming, Dad. Ms. Wells gave you a chance. The least we can do is say goodbye. Robert didn't argue. Catherine was awake when they arrived, but barely. Her skin had a grayish tinge. Her breathing was labored. But she smiled when she saw Maya. You brought the girls. They insisted. Maya approached the bed cautiously. Ms. Wells, are you dying? Maya, Grace hissed. But Catherine laughed weakly. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Does it hurt? A little. But the doctors are managing it. Mostly I'm just tired. My mom was tired too. At the end. Dad says she was ready to rest. Maya climbed onto the chair beside the bed. Are you ready to rest? Catherine's eyes filled with tears. You know what I think I am. I'm tired of fighting. Tired of being sick. I'm ready to see my father again. Tell him I finished his work. You should tell him yourself when you see him. I will. Catherine looked at Robert. Did the lawyers reach you? They called this morning. Wanted to go over the paperwork. Good. Everything's in order then. The shares transfer automatically upon my death. The board can't fight it, I made sure of that. And Robert? She gestured for him to come closer. The pendant. I want you to have it. She reached up, unclasped the silver pendant she always wore, handed it to Robert with shaking fingers. My father gave this to me when I started Aurora. Said it represented the flow of water, how it adapts, finds its way around obstacles, sustains life. He wanted me to remember that engineering isn't about forcing solutions. It's about working with what exists, making things better. Catherine closed his hand around the pendant. Now it's yours. Reminder of what Aurora stands for. Catherine, I can't. You can. You will. Promise me you'll wear it. Remember what it means. Robert fastened the pendant around his neck. The metal was warm from Catherine's skin. I promise. Good. Catherine's breathing was getting more labored. Grace, come here. Grace approached nervously. Take care of your father. He's going to doubt himself. A lot. When he does, remind him he's brilliant. That he's capable of amazing things. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. And Maya. Catherine's voice was fading. Keep building things. The world needs builders, needs people who see problems and fix them. Your dad's teaching you that. Don't forget it. I won't. Catherine's eyes closed. For a moment, Robert thought she was gone. Then they opened again, focusing on him with effort. Thank you, she whispered. For the river. For everything after. For giving my last weeks meaning. Thank you, Robert replied, his voice breaking. For giving me a future. For believing in me when no one else did. Always did. From the moment... She struggled for breath. From the moment I saw you dive. Knew you were special. Knew you'd... Another labored breath. Finish the work. Her eyes closed again. This time they didn't open. The machines began to alarm. Dr. Morrison rushed in, checked vitals, looked at Robert with sad eyes. She's gone. Robert stood there holding his daughters, watching the woman who'd changed his life slip away. Just like Sarah. Just like his mother before her. Everyone he let himself care about eventually left. But Catherine had left him something. A mission. A purpose. A chance to honor both her legacy and her father's. Come on, girls, he said quietly. Let's go home. They walked out of the hospital into cold night air. Robert felt numb, exhausted, but also strangely determined. Catherine had fought until her last breath to protect Aurora, to finish her father's work, to prove that business could serve people instead of exploiting them. Now it was his turn. The funeral was 3 days later. Private ceremony per Catherine's wishes. Just the Aurora team, a few board members, some old friends. Robert gave the eulogy because no one else stepped up. Catherine Wells was complicated. He began staring at the small crowd. She made mistakes, hurt people including me, but she spent the last years of her life trying to fix those mistakes, trying to build something that mattered, something that would outlive her. He touched the pendant around his neck. She believed that engineering was about serving people, solving real problems for real communities, not chasing profit or quarterly earnings, but making the world better. Her father believed that. She believed that. And now, he looked at his team. Now it's our job to prove them right. After the service board members approached him, some offering condolences, others already positioning for the coming fight over Aurora's direction. The gray-haired man Richard Sterling Robert had learned pulled him aside. "Mr. Chen, we need to discuss the transition. Catherine's shares transfer to you and the team, but the company still needs leadership. We'll be appointing an interim CEO." "Who?" "We're considering several candidates, all with strong commercial backgrounds." "Of course you are." Sterling's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Catherine's been dead for 3 days, and you're already preparing to gut her mission. Convert Aurora into just another tech company chasing profits." "We're preparing to ensure Aurora survives. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like vultures circling a corpse." "Careful, Mr. Chen. You may have shares now, but you're still just an employee. I'm Director of Engineering, and I control all humanitarian projects. Catherine made sure of that. So whatever CEO you appoint, they'll have to go through me to change the mission." Robert stepped closer. "And I don't plan to make it easy." Sterling smiled coldly. "We'll see about that." The next week was chaos. The board appointed a new interim CEO, Nathan Cross, corporate efficiency expert, with a reputation for ruthless cost-cutting. He immediately started reviewing all of Aurora's projects, looking for things to trim. Robert and the engineering team went into defensive mode. "He's targeting the dialysis project first," Priya reported at an emergency team meeting. "Says it's not commercially viable, wants to shelve it indefinitely." "Over my dead body," Robert said. "He's the CEO. He can overrule you." "Not on humanitarian projects. Catherine structured my role specifically to prevent that. He can recommend, he can argue, but he can't force me to stop work without board approval. And we've got 3 mission-aligned board members who'll back us." "That's not a majority." "No, but it's enough to deadlock any vote, which means Cross can't act unilaterally." Robert pulled up the project timeline. "We need to move fast, get the dialysis system into field trials before Cross can build support for shutting us down. Once it's deployed, once we have real-world data showing impact, it becomes much harder to kill." "Field trials take months to arrange," Marcus said. "Permits partnerships, logistics. Then we do it unofficially. Partner with an NGO directly. Send the prototype somewhere it's needed. Collect data ourselves." "That's risky." "Everything's risky now, but Catherine didn't give me this job to play it safe. She gave it to me to fight." Robert looked around the table at his team. "So I'm fighting. Anyone who wants out, no judgment. This could get ugly." No one moved. "Then let's get to work." They spent the next 3 weeks preparing for an unauthorized field trial. Robert contacted NGOs Catherine had worked with, found one running a clinic in Guatemala that was desperate for dialysis solutions. They agreed to test the prototype if Aurora covered shipping and provided remote technical support. Nathan Cross found out 2 days before deployment. "You're doing what?" he shouted, storming into Robert's office. "Field testing our dialysis prototype, per my authority as Director of Engineering. Without board approval, without proper channels, you can't just—" "I can actually. Catherine's charter gives me full discretion on humanitarian project deployment. You can read the bylaws if you want. Section 7, paragraph 3. Cross's face was red. "This is insubordination. This is doing my job. The job Catherine hired me to do. Catherine's dead, and I'm in charge now." You're interim CEO. There's a difference. Robert stood meeting Cross's eyes. Aurora exists to serve people, not shareholders, not quarterly reports. People. And there are people in Guatemala who need dialysis, so that's where our prototype is going. If it fails, then we learn from the failure and iterate. That's how engineering works. But it won't fail, because we built it right. Cross leaned across the desk. You're making an enemy, Chen. I've got lots of enemies. What's one more? After Cross left, Priya poked her head in. That was either really brave or really stupid. Probably both. Is the prototype ready? Shipping out tomorrow morning. I'm going with it. Figured someone should be on site for the first week. Priya, you don't have to. I want to. This is what Aurora is supposed to be about. Boots on the ground helping people. Catherine understood that. You understand that. Cross doesn't. She smiled. Besides, someone needs to take photos for the board presentation. What board presentation? The one you're giving in 4 weeks. Showing real-world results. Proving the dialysis system works. Making it impossible for Cross to kill the project. Robert hadn't thought that far ahead. But Priya was right. Data would be their weapon. Proof that humanitarian engineering could succeed. Send me updates, he said. Every day. Any problems, call immediately. Will do, boss. She left. Robert sat at his desk, touching the pendant around his neck. The flow of water. Adapting. Finding ways around obstacles. Catherine had known this fight was coming. That's why she'd structured things the way she had. Given Robert enough authority to act, but not enough to control everything. Forced him to build coalitions. Fight strategically. She'd been preparing him all along. His phone buzzed. Text from Grace. Maya's science fair is Thursday. Can you come? Robert looked at his calendar. Meetings stacked on meetings. Prototype reviews. Budget discussions. The daily war with Cross over Aurora's direction. But Maya was 8 years old and needed her father. Wouldn't miss it, he typed back. Because that was the other thing Catherine had taught him. Success meant nothing if you lost yourself achieving it. If you sacrificed family for work. If you forgot what you were fighting for. He'd watched Sarah die while working himself to exhaustion. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Thursday afternoon, Robert left work early. Showed up at Maya's school gym, where science fair projects lined tables. Found Maya standing nervously beside a volcano model. Dad, you came? Of course I came. Show me how it works. Maya launched into an enthusiastic explanation of chemical reactions, vinegar, and baking soda, the importance of measurement. Robert listened, asked questions, praised her design choices. When she won 3rd place, Maya's face lit up like Christmas. We did it, Dad. You did it, baby. All you. Grace appeared, having come straight from volleyball practice. Nice work, Squirt. Thanks, Dad. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Absolutely. They went to the same place they'd gone with Catherine. The owner remembered them. Your usual? Yeah, Robert said. Then paused. Actually add mint chip. 3 scoops. Someone's celebrating. Yeah, we are. They sat outside despite the cold, eating ice cream and talking about Maya's project, Grace's upcoming tournament, Robert's work at Aurora. Normal family stuff. The kind of moments Robert had almost forgotten were possible. Dad, Grace said suddenly, are you happy? Really happy? Not just making the best of it, happy. Robert thought about the question. About the chaos at Aurora. The fight with Cross. The pressure of Catherine's legacy weighing on him. But also about the engineering work. The mission. The feeling that what he did mattered. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am. It's hard. It's scary. But I'm doing something that matters. And I have you two. What more could I want? For Ms. Wells to still be alive, Maya said quietly. Robert pulled her close. Yeah, baby. That too. They finished their ice cream. Drove home. Normal evening, Normal night. But Robert knew it wouldn't last. The fight for Aurora was just beginning. Cross was building support for his efficiency measures. The board was divided, and Robert was running out of time to prove humanitarian engineering could work. 3 weeks later, Priya called from Guatemala. "Robert, you need to see this." She sent photos, the dialysis prototype in a small clinic. A woman, maybe 40, maybe younger, hard to tell, sitting beside it smiling. Her color was good. She looked healthy. "That's Maria," Priya explained over video chat. "Kidney failure. No access to treatment. We've been running her through dialysis 3 times a week for the past month. Her numbers are improving. She's gaining weight. Robert, it's working. It's actually working." Robert felt his throat tighten. "Any problems with the device?" "Minor issues. The pump needed adjustment twice. But the clinic staff learned how to fix it with our manual, just like you designed." Priya's face filled the screen. "We're making a difference here. Real, measurable difference. Catherine would be so proud." "She would," Robert agreed. "Keep documenting everything. I'm presenting to the board next week. I need all the data you've got." "You'll have it." Robert spent the next week preparing his presentation. Photos from Guatemala, medical data showing improved patient outcomes. Cost analysis proving the model was sustainable. Testimonials from clinic staff and patients. The night before the board meeting, he couldn't sleep. Kept running through his talking points, anticipating objections, preparing counter-arguments. His phone rang at 2 a.m. Nathan Cross. "Chen, we need to talk." "It's 2 a.m. I know what time it is, and I know what you're planning tomorrow. Your little presentation about Guatemala. It's not little. It's proof of nothing except that you're willing to ignore chain of command and waste company resources on feel-good projects. People are being helped. Lives are being saved. At what cost? We've spent millions developing that technology. Millions more on your field trial. And for what? To give it away, to break even if we're lucky. To prove the mission works. That's what Aurora exists for. Aurora exists to create shareholder value. Everything else is secondary. That's not what Catherine's dead, and her sentimental approach died with her. Tomorrow, I'm recommending the board shut down all humanitarian projects. Focus entirely on commercial applications. It's the only way Aurora survives." Robert's hand tightened on the phone. "You can't do that." "Watch me." Cross hung up. Robert sat in darkness, his mind racing. Cross was making his move. Tomorrow. The board meeting was the battlefield, and Robert had just learned the enemy's strategy. He called Priya back despite the hour. "I need everything. Every photo, every data point, every story you've got. Cross is trying to kill the whole humanitarian division. We need to make it impossible for the board to say no." "On it." "Robert," she paused. "Catherine knew this would happen. That's why she chose you, because you don't give up. Don't back down. Don't let them win." "I won't." Robert spent the rest of the night refining his presentation, adding Priya's latest data, building the strongest possible case for continuing Aurora's mission. At 6 a.m., Grace found him still at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and photos. "Dad, did you sleep at all?" "No time. The board meeting is at 10 a.m., which means you have 4 hours to shower, eat, and pull yourself together." Grace started making coffee. "You're not going to help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." "There's too much." "Then you'll finish it after breakfast. Come on, shower, now." Robert obeyed, too tired to argue. Let the hot water wash away some of the tension. Dressed in his best suit, only suit really the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral and hadn't touched since. Grace made eggs and toast. Maya came down, took one look at him, and hugged him tight. "You're going to save Ms. Wells's company today, aren't you?" "I'm going to try, baby." "You'll do it, because you're you, and you don't give up." Robert held his daughter close, drawing strength from her certainty. Then he grabbed his presentation materials and drove to Aurora. The war for Catherine's legacy was about to begin. The boardroom felt different this time. Robert stood outside the door's presentation materials clutched in sweating hands and tried to remember how to breathe. Last time he'd been here, Catherine had been alive, fighting beside him. Now he was alone, facing 12 people who held Aurora's future in their hands. The door opened. Richard Sterling stood there, expression unreadable. "Chen, we're ready for you." Robert walked in. The board members sat around the massive table. Some he recognized from the prototype demonstration, others were new faces. Nathan Cross sat at the head, looking smug and confident. "Mr. Chen," Cross began, "we've asked you here to discuss the future of Aurora's humanitarian division. As interim CEO, I've conducted a thorough review of all projects and concluded that—" "I have data from Guatemala," Robert interrupted, setting up his laptop. "Real-world results from our dialysis field trial. I think the board should see it before making any decisions." Cross's jaw tightened. "Mr. Chen, this meeting is to discuss my recommendations, which I'm sure are based on financial projections and efficiency metrics," Robert said, pulling up his first slide. "But Catherine Wells founded Aurora on the principle that impact matters as much as profit. So let me show you what impact looks like." He clicked to the first image. Maria, the Guatemalan patient before treatment. Gaunt, gray-skinned, barely able to stand. This is Maria Gonzalez, 43 years old, mother of 4, kidney failure. No access to dialysis because the nearest facility is 200 miles away and costs more than her family earns in a year. Next slide. Maria, after 4 weeks of treatment with the LifeStream prototype. Color in her cheeks, smiling, holding one of her children. This is Maria now, after 1 month using our portable dialysis system. Her creatinine levels dropped 60%. Blood pressure normalized. She's back to work, taking care of her family, living. Robert clicked through more images. The small clinic where they'd set up the prototype. Local health workers operating the device. Patients waiting for treatment. In 6 weeks, we've treated 18 patients, all showing improved outcomes. The device has required minimal maintenance, 3 minor repairs, all completed by clinic staff using our manual. Total operating cost per treatment is 1/10 of traditional dialysis. That's very touching, Cross interrupted. But Mr. Chen, you're not addressing the fundamental issue. We invested $12 million developing this technology. Your field trial cost another $200,000, and you're giving it away. How is that sustainable? By licensing the technology to NGOs and governments at cost recovery pricing. We're not giving it away, we're making it accessible. There's a difference. A difference that results in minimal profit. A difference that results in lives saved. 18 so far. Potentially thousands once we scale up. Robert advanced to his financial projection slide. And actually, the model is sustainable. We've already had inquiries from 3 international NGOs and 2 government health ministries. Conservative estimates put revenue at $5 million annually within 3 years. That's not billions, but it covers development costs and funds continued innovation. Richard Sterling leaned forward. What about commercial applications? Surely this technology has value in developed markets. It does, and we can pursue that separately. License the core filtration technology to medical device companies for premium markets. Use that revenue to subsidize humanitarian applications. Catherine's model profit enabling purpose. Or, Cross interjected, we focus entirely on commercial applications. Maximize returns. Let other organizations handle humanitarian work. Other organizations don't have our technology. They don't have our engineering expertise. They can't do what we do. Robert paused, choosing his next words carefully. Catherine Wells gave me this job for a reason. Not because I'm the most qualified engineer, half the people in this building have better credentials. But because I understand what it means when theory meets reality. when engineering decisions have life or death consequences. He pulled up another image. His own wife Sarah in the hospital during her final weeks. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. This is my wife. She died 4 years ago because we couldn't afford experimental treatments. Because insurance wouldn't cover what she needed. Because the healthcare system prioritized profit over people. Robert's voice was steady, despite the emotion churning in his gut. Catherine knew that about me. She knew I'd fight for Aurora's mission because I've lived what happens when mission fails. When companies choose shareholders over human beings. Mr. Chen, one of the board members said gently, no one's questioning your dedication. But surely you can see that Aurora needs to be financially viable. Aurora is financially viable. You gave Catherine 1 year to prove it. We're 4 months in. The dialysis system works. We have real data now, real patients, real impact. And we're just getting started. Robert clicked to his final slide, a roadmap of future projects. Water purification systems for 3 African communities. Solar-powered vaccine refrigeration for remote clinics in Indonesia. Educational technology for schools in Appalachia. Every single project designed with sustainability built in. Every single one serving people who've been ignored by the market. Every single one with minimal profit margin, Cross added. Every single one changing lives. Isn't that why Aurora exists? The room fell silent. Then one of the board members Robert didn't recognize spoke up. I'm Jennifer Zhao. I joined the board last year, invested $5 million in Aurora. Not because I expected massive returns, but because Catherine's vision resonated with me. My parents immigrated from China with nothing. Worked factory jobs just like Mr. Chen did. They understood what it meant to be overlooked by systems designed for other people. She looked directly at Cross. I didn't invest in Aurora to watch it become just another tech company chasing quarterly earnings. I invested because it's different, because it matters. Thank you, another board member added. Thomas Wright, I'm with Jennifer. Catherine made clear when she recruited me that Aurora's mission was non-negotiable. I signed on knowing that. Nothing's changed. Everything's changed, Cross said sharply. Catherine's gone. And without her at the helm, we have Robert, Jennifer interrupted. Catherine chose him specifically to carry forward the mission. She restructured his role to protect humanitarian projects. She gave him shares to ensure he had a voice. She knew this fight was coming, and she prepared for it. Cross stood abruptly. This is absurd. We're letting emotions override business sense. Mr. Chen's presentation is compelling, I'll grant that. But one successful field trial doesn't prove long-term viability. We need to think strategically about Aurora's future. We are thinking strategically, Richard Sterling said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Sterling had been Aurora's board chair for 5 years, appointed by Catherine's father originally. His opinion carried weight. Nathan, you've made valid points about financial sustainability. But you're missing something crucial. Aurora's brand value is tied directly to its mission. We're not just another medical device company. We're the company that chooses people over profit. That builds technology for communities everyone else ignores. That reputation has value. Significant value. Reputation doesn't pay bills, Cross muttered. Actually, it does. It attracts mission-aligned investors like Jennifer. It helps recruit top engineering talent who want their work to matter. It generates positive media coverage that money can't buy. And, Sterling looked directly at Robert, it gives us people like Mr. Chen, who jumped into a freezing river to save our CEO, who built a working prototype in 6 days, who's fighting right now to honor the woman who gave him a second chance. That's not just dedication. That's the kind of leadership that builds companies worth building. The room was completely silent now. Sterling continued. I vote we continue Aurora's humanitarian division for the full year Catherine negotiated. Let Mr. Chen prove the model works. Support the Guatemala program and fund the next round of projects. We reevaluate in 8 months based on actual results, not projections or fears. Seconded, Jennifer said immediately. Third, Thomas added. 3 votes. Robert held his breath. He needed 7 for a majority. Another board member raised her hand. Helen Martinez, I'm in. Let's see this through. 4. David Park, agreed. 5. Sarah Okonkwo, yes. 6. One more vote and they'd have majority. But the remaining 6 board members were silent, exchanging glances, clearly weighing their options. Finally, an older man Robert vaguely recognized spoke up. Charles Henderson. I was on the original board when Samuel Wells ran this company. Watched him build Westlake into something special. Watched it get destroyed after Catherine sold it. And I watched Catherine spend 12 years trying to atone for that mistake. He looked at Cross. Nathan, you're a good CEO for most companies. Efficient. Profit-focused. But Aurora isn't most companies. It never was. Samuel built it on the principle that engineering serves humanity. Catherine reinforced that. And I'll be damned if I let it die now. 7 votes. Majority secured. Cross's face was red. This is a mistake. You're choosing sentiment over strategy. We're choosing mission over money, Sterling said firmly. The vote is decided. Aurora continues its humanitarian division under Mr. Chen's direction. You'll continue as interim CEO, but all decisions regarding humanitarian projects require board approval, which means Robert has effective veto power. This is outrageous. This is Catherine's legacy, and we're honoring it. Sterling turned to Robert. Mr. Chen, you have 8 months. Show us the mission works. Prove Aurora can be both profitable and purposeful. I will, Robert said, his voice steadier than his hands. Thank you. The meeting adjourned. Board members filed out, some stopping to congratulate Robert, others avoiding eye contact entirely. Cross brushed past without a word, fury radiating from every line of his body. Jennifer Zhao lingered. That was brave, what you did, showing your wife's photo, using your own story. It was the truth, that's all I had. Sometimes truth is the most powerful weapon. She handed him her card. I want to stay involved with the dialysis project. Updates, progress reports, whatever you need. My parents would have loved to see something like this exist when they were struggling. I'll keep you updated. Thank you for your vote. Thank you for fighting. Catherine saw something special in you. I'm starting to see it too. After she left, Robert stood alone in the empty boardroom, legs shaking with relief and residual adrenaline. He'd done it. Bought Aurora 8 more months. 8 months to prove humanitarian engineering could work. 8 months to honor Catherine's legacy. His phone buzzed. Text from Priya in Guatemala. We're treating 2 new patients today. Word is spreading. People are traveling hours to reach the clinic. Robert, we're making a real difference here. He showed the text to Sterling, who'd been gathering papers. That's what it's about, Sterling said quietly. Not spreadsheets or profit margins. Real people, real lives, real impact. Don't lose sight of that, no matter how hard Cross pushes. He's going to make my life hell, isn't he? Probably. But Catherine didn't choose you because she thought it'd be easy. She chose you because she knew you wouldn't quit, even when it got hard. Sterling extended his hand. Welcome to the fight, Mr. Chen. Try not to let it kill you. Robert drove back to Aurora's main campus in a daze. The engineering team was waiting in the lab, having monitored the board meeting remotely through Jennifer's texts. We won! Marcus shouted when Robert walked in. Holy shit, we actually won! Language? Robert said automatically, then laughed. Yeah, we won. For now. Priya appeared on the video monitor. They'd set up a permanent connection to the Guatemala clinic. Robert, I heard this is amazing. It's 8 months, he cautioned. 8 months to prove the entire humanitarian model works. Not just dialysis. Everything. The water purification projects, the vaccine, refrigeration, all of it. Then we'd better get to work, Elena said. What's first? Robert pulled up his project timeline. We scale up Guatemala. Add 2 more clinics, train more health workers, expand patient capacity. Document everything meticulously. We need ironclad data for the next board review. Simultaneously, we launch the Kenya Water Project. Marcus, your lead on that. David, start planning the Indonesia vaccine program. We move fast, we move smart, and we prove that Aurora's mission isn't just idealistic, it's viable. What about Cross? David asked. He's not going to just accept this. No, he's not. Which means we stay squeaky clean. No unauthorized spending. No corners cut. Everything by the book, fully documented, completely transparent. We don't give him any ammunition. The team nodded, determination evident on every face. Over the next 3 months, Robert barely slept. Days were consumed with engineering work, refining the dialysis system, based on field feedback, developing water purification prototypes, overseeing vaccine refrigeration designs. Nights were spent on logistics and planning, coordinating with NGO partners, managing budgets down to the penny. And always, Cross was watching, questioning expenses, demanding justifications, looking for any mistake he could leverage. He's trying to make you quit, Grace observed one night, finding Robert at the kitchen table again, surrounded by budget spreadsheets at 11 p.m. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'm not quitting. I know. But Dad. She sat across from him. You're exhausted. You haven't taken a day off in 3 months. Maya asked me yesterday if you still live here, or if you moved to Aurora. That hit like a punch. I'm here every night. You're physically here, but you're not present. You eat dinner while reviewing documents. You help with homework while taking calls. You're stretched so thin, I'm worried you'll snap. Robert set down his pen. I know, I'm sorry. It's just there's so much riding on this. If I fail Catherine's entire legacy. Mom wouldn't want you to kill yourself trying to honor someone else's legacy. Neither would Ms. Wells. Grace's voice was gentle but firm. You need balance. You need to remember why you're doing this. It's not just about proving a point to the board. It's about helping people, including the people in this house. She was right. Robert knew she was right. But every time he tried to step back, tried to delegate, he remembered Catherine's face in that hospital bed, her trust, her belief that he could do this. 1 week, he said finally. Let me get through the Kenya launch. Then I'll take a weekend off. We'll do something together, all 3 of us. Promise? Promise. The Kenya Water Project launched 2 weeks later. Marcus led a team to a rural village outside Nairobi, installing solar-powered purification systems that could serve 500 people. The technology was simpler than the dialysis system, but no less impactful. Clean water meant fewer waterborne diseases, better health outcomes. Kids who could attend school instead of spending hours fetching contaminated water from distant sources. Robert watched the launch via video feed, seeing villagers gather around the new water station, seeing children fill containers with clean water for the first time in their lives, seeing mothers weep with relief. This is what Catherine wanted, he said softly to the empty office. His phone rang. Sterling. Robert, we need to talk. In person. Can you come to my office? Is something wrong? Just come, please. 20 minutes later, Robert sat across from Sterling in the board chair's private office. The older man looked troubled. Cross is building a case against you, Sterling said without preamble. He's been talking to board members, questioning your management, suggesting that humanitarian projects are draining resources that could be used more efficiently. Is it working? Is he swaying votes? Some. Henderson's still solid, and Jennifer Thomas Helen and the others who voted with us. But the 6 who opposed are definitely listening to Cross. And he's making compelling arguments about opportunity cost. We're delivering results. I know, and I believe in what you're doing. But Robert, Sterling leaned forward. You need to start thinking politically. Building relationships with board members. Making your case not just on merit, but on influence. I'm an engineer, not a politician. You're a director now. That means you need to be both. Sterling pulled out a folder. I've put together profiles of each board member, their backgrounds, their interests, what motivates them. Study it. Reach out to them. Build bridges. Because when the next board review comes in 5 months, the vote could be much closer than last time. Robert took the folder reluctantly. This feels manipulative. It's strategic. There's a difference. Catherine understood that. She cultivated relationships with board members for years. That's why she had enough support to structure your role the way she did. Sterling's expression softened. I know this isn't what you signed up for. You wanted to build things, solve problems, do good work. But leadership means navigating people as much as engineering. Samuel Wells taught me that. Catherine learned it the hard way. Now I'm teaching you. What if I'm not good at it? Then you learn, just like you learned to lead the engineering team, just like you learned to present to the board, just like you learned everything else you thought you couldn't do. Sterling stood. You jumped into a river, Robert. Everything after that is easier. Over the next 2 months, Robert forced himself to do things that felt unnatural. He scheduled lunches with board members, asked about their families, learned their stories. Slowly, carefully, he built relationships beyond the boardroom. He discovered that Helen Martinez's daughter had diabetes technology Aurora could potentially help with. That David Park had grown up in poverty in South Korea and still supported education initiatives there. That Sarah Okonkwo's village in Nigeria desperately needed the kind of water systems Marcus was installing in Kenya. These weren't just board votes. They were people, with their own stories, their own reasons for caring about Aurora's mission. And gradually, almost without realizing it, Robert stopped seeing board management as manipulation and started seeing it as connection. These people wanted to help. They just needed to understand how. Grace noticed the change. You seem less stressed. I'm just as busy. But I don't know. It feels different. Like I'm not fighting alone anymore. Because you're not. You've built a team. At Aurora. On the board. Even at home, Maya and I are here for you. You don't have to carry everything yourself. When did you get so wise? When I got a dad who needed wisdom. Someone had to balance out your stubbornness. 5 months after the first board vote, Robert prepared for his progress review. This time he wasn't nervous. He had results. Real, measurable, undeniable results. Guatemala. 27 patients receiving regular dialysis treatment. All showing improved health outcomes. The clinic was training neighboring facilities to replicate the program. 2 countries had approached Aurora about licensing the technology. Kenya clean water access for 1,200 people across 3 villages. Disease rates down 40%. School attendance up 30%. 2 more villages requesting installations. Indonesia vaccine refrigeration pilot program launched in remote islands. Previously impossible to maintain vaccine cold chain. Now serving 8,000 people. Government Health Ministry requesting nationwide expansion. The numbers told the story Catherine had believed in. The story Robert was now living. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday. Robert spent Wednesday night with his daughters instead of reviewing notes. You ready? Grace asked over dinner, homemade lasagna. Sarah's recipe that Robert had finally remembered how to make without crying. As ready as I'll ever be. You're going to crush it, Maya declared, because you're the best builder ever, and you're building Ms. Wells's dream. Robert pulled both girls into a hug. I love you too. No matter what happens tomorrow, that's what matters most. Got it. Got it, they said in unison. Thursday morning, Robert arrived at Aurora to find the entire engineering team waiting. We wanted to wish you luck, Priya said. Though you don't need it. The work speaks for itself. Catherine would be proud, Marcus added. She'd probably tell me I was doing it wrong, Robert said with a slight smile. Then show me how to do it better. Probably, Elena laughed. But she'd also tell you you're exactly the person for this job, so go prove her right. The boardroom was packed, all 12 voting members present. Sterling at the head of the table, Cross sitting stiffly, arms crossed, clearly expecting this to go his way. Robert set up his presentation, took a breath, touched the pendant around his neck. Catherine's pendant, the reminder of what this was all about. 8 months ago, he began, you gave me a chance. Gave Aurora's humanitarian mission a chance. I'm here to show you what that chance has accomplished. He walked them through everything. Numbers, photos, patient testimonials, financial projections showing the model was not just sustainable but growing. Letters from government ministers requesting partnerships, NGOs offering funding, communities transformed by Aurora's technology. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Jennifer Zhao started clapping. Others joined her. Soon, the entire room was applauding everyone except Cross, who sat stone-faced. Sterling called for a vote. All in favor of continuing Aurora's humanitarian division indefinitely under Director Chen's leadership. Hands went up. Robert counted. 7, 8, 9. Then, to his shock, one more. Charles Henderson leaned over, said something to the board member beside him, one of the ones who'd voted against Robert last time. The woman hesitated, then slowly raised her hand. 10 votes. A supermajority. Motion passes, Sterling announced. Aurora's humanitarian division continues permanently. Mr. Cross, I believe we also need to discuss your future with the company. That won't be necessary, Cross interrupted, standing abruptly. I'm resigning effective immediately. I didn't sign up to run a charity disguised as a business. He glared at Robert. Good luck making this work long term. You'll need it. He walked out. Robert should have felt victorious, should have felt relieved, but mostly he just felt tired. Sterling approached after the meeting. Congratulations, you did it. Aurora's mission is secure. For now. Forever. The board just voted to amend Aurora's charter. Humanitarian work is now written into the company's core purpose. Can't be changed without unanimous vote. Which means, as long as Jennifer Thomas Helen and a few others are around, Aurora stays true to Catherine's vision. The weight of that hit Robert slowly. He'd done it. Actually done it. Saved Catherine's legacy. Honored her father's dream. Proved that business could serve people. Thank you, Robert said, his voice thick, for believing in me. For teaching me how to navigate all this. Thank you for being worth believing in. Catherine saw something special in you. She was right. Sterling clasped his shoulder. Now go home, hug your daughters, take a few days off. You've earned it. Robert drove home in a daze. Pulled into his driveway to find Grace and Maya waiting on the porch, having gotten home from school early somehow. Did you win? Maya shouted before he even got out of the truck. Yeah, baby, we won. Both girls rushed him, hugging him tight, shouting and laughing. Robert held them close, feeling the weight of 8 months of stress finally lift. Ms. Wells would be so proud, Grace said quietly. You did exactly what she asked. You saved her company. You're honoring her legacy. Our legacy now, Robert corrected. Mine and the team's and everyone at Aurora who believes in the mission. Catherine started it. Her father started it before her. But it's ours to carry forward. That weekend, Robert took his first real break in months. They went hiking, something they hadn't done since Sarah died. Maya chattered the whole way up the trail, pointing out birds and rocks, and everything she found interesting. Grace walked beside Robert in companionable silence. At the summit, they sat looking out over the valley. Robert pulled out his phone, snapped a photo. Later, he'd put it on his desk at Aurora beside the picture of Sarah and the memorial photo of Catherine from the funeral. Dad, Maya said suddenly, are you going to stay at Aurora like forever? I don't know about forever, but yeah, for a long time. Why? Because I like it when you're happy. You're happier now than you've been since Mom died. Robert blinked back sudden tears. Yeah, baby, I am. Good, Mom would want that. She'd want you to be happy. She would, Grace agreed. She'd also want you to keep building things, keep helping people, keep being the person she fell in love with. When did you two get so smart about relationships? We have an excellent teacher, Grace said with a smile, even if he doesn't realize it. They hiked back down as the sun set, tired and happy, and together. Monday morning, Robert returned to Aurora to find his office had changed. Someone, probably the engineering team, had added a new plaque to his door. Robert Chen, Director of Engineering, Humanitarian Division. And underneath, in smaller letters, in memory of Catherine Wells and Samuel Wells, builders of dreams. Robert stood there for a long moment, touching the pendant around his neck, feeling the weight of legacy and responsibility and possibility. Then he walked into his office and got to work. Because there were water systems to design, dialysis programs to expand, vaccine refrigeration to improve, a mission to fulfill, a legacy to honor, and lives to save. 3 years later, Robert stood on another bridge, not Pleasant Valley, that one still carried too many memories, but a new bridge in Kenya, watching as villagers celebrated the opening of Aurora's first fully community-run medical clinic. The dialysis program had expanded to 17 countries. The water systems served over 100,000 people. New projects were launching every month. Grace had just finished her first year at MIT studying engineering. Following in her father's footsteps, Maya was building robots in middle school, already showing the same problem-solving instincts that made Robert good at his job. And Aurora was thriving. Not in spite of its humanitarian focus, but because of it. The mission attracted top talent, generated positive press, created partnerships with governments and NGOs worldwide. Profit and purpose weren't opposed. They were intertwined. Sterling had retired from the board chair position, recommending Robert as his replacement. Robert had declined. He was an engineer, not an executive, but accepted a permanent board seat. Enough influence to protect the mission. Enough distance to focus on the work he loved. Mr. Chen. A young engineer approached one of the new hires Robert had recruited. The clinic director wants to know if you'll say a few words at the opening ceremony. Tell her I'll be right there. Robert walked toward the celebration, toward the community he'd helped serve, toward the future Catherine and her father had envisioned. And as he walked, he thought about that stormy night 3 years ago, the moment his truck had rolled across Pleasant Valley Bridge, the split-second decision to dive into freezing water. The woman he'd saved, who had in turn saved him. Catherine was gone. But her dream lived on. In every clinic, every water system, every life improved by Aurora's technology. And Robert Chen, factory worker, engineer, father bridge diver, was honored to carry that dream forward. Not because he was special, not because he was a hero, but because when someone was drowning, he'd jumped. And sometimes that was enough.